What's going on, guys? I'm in Advantage and welcome back to another NHL 22 HUT video. In today's video, we are ranking all of the X factors. Now, we have previously done this before, however, things do change. Guys, before we get into it, I put my absolute blood, sweat, and tears into this one. We're taking stats, we're taking injuries, we're taking news, we're taking literally everything that I see coming so you can choose the best X factors to invest in for your HUT team in NHL 22. To keep things consistent with the last video, we are keeping the categories exactly the same. First up is avoid. These are cards that you should 100% avoid having on your team. Next up is okay. These cards aren't going to hurt you, but they're not necessarily going to help your HUT team. The third category is good, meaning these cards are certainly going to help your team. And the last category is great. These are the best of the best X factors to choose for your HUT team in NHL 22. As I previously mentioned, when I was ranking these cards, I'm taking into account recent news, how these players have been playing, and how we project their seasons to continue moving forward, as well as size and speed, zone and superstar abilities, and where they fit, as well as the other competition amongst all the cards in HUT now that we're a few months into it. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. Up first on our list is the 5'7", 165-pound Alex DEBRINCAT. Now, I did have him in the beginning of the game. I did like him initially, but I found as players started to get better that he was just getting absolutely obliterated in his own zone. Now, he obviously is super quick. He also has fly the zone, which is nice, which bumps up that speed. However, the reality is there are much better right-handed wingers available. Moving on to stats and his further projections, as you can see, he's maxed out currently at an 85. He does have 12 goals on the season, which is actually pretty solid. He's on pace for about a 30-goal season. So he's doing quite well as far as that's concerned. Obviously, the Blackhawks are a completely other story. But I just don't see this card being one that is viable as a right-handed winger, so I would avoid Alex DEBRINCAT. Up next is another Chicago Blackhawk in MARC-ANDRE Fleury. It's 6'2", 185. He's a bit small for a long-term goaltender, and of course, if you are going to buy the X Factor or choose the X Factor and have him in net, well, you'd probably want somebody that's a little bit bigger, at least in HUT. Synergy-wise, he has some pretty good ones here available. I just don't see Fleury getting a ton of upgrades throughout the season, and I just simply think that there's much better goalies available now, especially with the new 22 under 22 sets out. I would avoid Fleury. As far as stats and future upgrades are concerned for Fleury, he's at 5 wins and 9 losses on the season. And again, as we just mentioned, in Chicago, it's just not looking too bright there for them. I'm sure he'll get some upgrades and he may get some bones thrown his way. But again, a 6'2" goaltender, in my opinion, is not one that's going to last you the entire year, and there's much better options available out there. I would avoid this X Factor card. Staying on the goaltender topic, we have a 6'4" goalie, Connor HELLEBUYCK. Now, obviously, he's a bit bigger, but upgrades for him haven't really come his way at all this year. He's an 86 for the most part, and well, that's his max just from the get-go. His base card's an 85, so he hasn't received anything higher and above than what you could have got from the very start. As I just mentioned with Fleury, there's much better options available, at least long-term. When we look at his stats, 7 wins, 6 losses on the season. It's not a dominant season for HELLEBUYCK by any means, but he's not having a bad year. However, when it comes to utilizing Connor HELLEBUYCK and a lot of these X factors on your team, something to keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier and will continue to mention throughout this video, is there are better options available and much better options available right now. With the 22 under 22 sets, you can have a 92 overall goaltender in net today that is the same size, if not bigger than Connor HELLEBUYCK, and they're already a 92. Unless HELLEBUYCK was to get an upgrade that was a master set item that would boost him all the way up to a 92 or a 93, then maybe it makes sense. But looking right now at where his card is, it's going to be months until that happens, and it's not worth investing in an 86 overall goaltender that's capped at 86 right now. So I would look elsewhere. I would not invest in Connor HELLEBUYCK at the moment. He was injured in the beginning of the year, but up next is 6'3", 202-pound Mark Stone. I do like the fact that he has fly the zone, but if we just talk about this card on the surface, look at his speed. Fly the zone or distributor is also going to give +2 to his speed, and even with that activated, he's at 85 speed and 83 acceleration. This year in NHL, the right-handed winger position is the most competitive, flooded market there is, and Stone just does not compete. Quite frankly, there's a ton of better options out there, in the X Factor world as well. If we look at his stats, he's at 1 goal and 8 assists in 9 games played. He's underperforming comparatively to where he has been previously in Vegas. And I just don't see this card getting many upgrades, and I just don't see it being usable on a lot of teams right now. Coming up next from the St. Louis Blues is 6'1", 216-pound Ryan O'Reilly. Now, he's currently only at an 85, hasn't received any further upgrades this year, which is tough. What's consistent across the board with a number of these avoid cards is their lack of speed and lack of upgrade. Ryan O'Reilly is already falling behind quite a bit, being that he hasn't received any newer upgrades as of late. And obviously, although he has speed synergies, well, take a look. 83 acceleration or 83 speed to start. His shot is really pretty low compared to a lot of the other options out there. I would just leave Ryan O'Reilly on the table. As far as stats are concerned, 3 goals and 7 assists in 17 games played. He's not having a terrible season comparatively speaking. However, he's not the Ryan O'Reilly that we saw a few years back. Up next from the Tampa Bay Lightning is 5'10", 183-pound Brayden Point, facing a lot of the same problems as DEBRINCAT. Unfortunately, with his size, although he is fairly quick, hasn't received any upgrades this year that are going to bring him beyond the 85 that he's currently sitting at. As far as stats are concerned, he has 7 goals and 6 assists in 16 games played. Although he was a 40 goal scorer in 2018, his production has been pretty solid as of late. Unfortunately, this card doesn't play well in HUT. He gets taken off the puck way too easily, and I don't foresee Brayden Point catching up anytime soon, especially because he's not lighting it on fire in the NHL. Next up from the Colorado Avalanche is 6'1", 215-pound Gabriel Landeskog. Even with fly the zone activated, speed is only an 87, and although he is a pretty big body and has some interesting zone and superstar abilities, I would avoid this card. He's too far behind. He's too slow. His shot is okay, but unless he gets a master set item out of nowhere, I would not touch Gabriel Landeskog's card with a 10-foot pole. On the year, he's at 6 goals and 14 assists in 16 games played, which is just about on pace with where he typically is as far as points and goals are concerned. However, I wouldn't jump out of my seat and I wouldn't spend the time or money chasing Gabriel Landeskog's X Factor. If you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, you're probably disappointed to see his card on here, but coming up next is Elias Pettersson at 6'2", 176 pounds. I've actually liked to use his cards in previous HUTs, especially the fact that he does have speed synergies on here. If he does pop off, this card will move out of the avoid section. However, we're still waiting for that. He only has 4 goals and 7 assists on the season in 23 games played. Obviously, Vancouver's had a number of different struggles, and Pettersson is not one that is avoiding that. And unfortunately, that affects his future upgrades for this card. An 84 overall is not going to crack most lineups, and although his stats will be good if he does get those upgrades, unfortunately, I feel that he's too far behind in order to make the investment in him right now. Another disappointing player this year is 6'2", 208-pound MIKA ZIBANEJAD. Although the Rangers have done quite well to start their season, ZIBANEJAD has fallen off his most recent hot streak in production. Only at 4 goals on the season in 20 games played, he's pretty far behind where he was just 2 years ago at 41 goals scored in the season. So if we're looking at his card, I do like his stats. 6'2", 208, as we mentioned, he's a pretty big body. He does not have a speed synergy. This card would be pretty dangerous if it does get some upgrades, and obviously he can get hot just as any of these other players can. But currently, as we mentioned, and I'll continue to do these videos as the season goes on and things evolve, but unless ZIBANEJAD really does turn it around, I would not invest in this card. He's too far behind, and this card's going to be middle of the road at best for your team, but he's probably not going to crack most lineups. Up next is the 5'11", 195-pound Joe Pavelski. This card's really cheap as an X Factor, but I don't believe he's going to be tearing it up anytime soon in the NHL. It's 6 goals and 8 assists in 19 games played. He's really not lighting it on fire, and he's, of course, not the Joe Pavelski that we've seen a few years back. If this card was to miraculously get an upgrade out of somewhere, I think Big Tipper would be fantastic, especially in the center position, which you could potentially throw him on, but he is a bit small. All in all, guys, I would totally avoid Joe Pavelski's card. For example, I have a 91 overall Halloween Rivals Giroux, and even if Pavelski was to get to a 91, him and Giroux are very similar in size and play style as far as where you can put them on your team. Drew's on my 4th line. My team's pretty stacked comparatively, but even if that would happen in a few months, I think Drew's off my team, and if Pavelski does get there in a few months, he wouldn't make my lineup or even touch it. So for that reason, I would completely put Pavelski's card at an avoid. The last card that I would avoid in this video would be Jaccob Slavin at 6'3", 207. I like his size. I like both of his zone and superstar abilities, but I don't foresee him getting a ton of upgrades, and there's better right-handed defensive options out there. Even Seth Jones, John Carlson, Dougie Hamilton, just to name a few. I would 100% be investing in those cards over Slavin's. I would leave him on the table. He's just too far behind at this point. The future's not looking too bright for him either. At 0 goals on the season and 20 games played, unless EA just gives him a treat like they did recently with Barzal, yeah, he's not getting any upgrades anytime soon. I really wanted Mark Scheifele's card to take off. As you can see, I do own this card and have played with him. I think he'd be fantastic if he got some more upgrades. If I'm you, and I know I'm coming right off the bat and saying this, but I would rather pick up Jack Eichel's card or even Steven Stamkos' card. But at 6'3", 207, Mark Scheifele, well, he certainly has a lot of potential, but he's lackluster this year. 2 goals and 6 assists in 16 games. He's obviously not living up to what his normal play style is. I have used Big Rig on him, and then he also does have a speed synergy. Distributor is probably yet to come as he gets more upgrades, but I just don't see it happening with him. With Fly the Zone, he's at 90 speed. His shot is incredible. Puck control, passing, everything really across the board. He's a very solid card, and he's hard to take the puck off of. But there's better right-handed options, and I would leave a Scheifele on the table. Although he's not going to hurt your team, he's going to be ranked okay. Up next from the Boston Bruins is Brad Marchand. I do like the fact he has a speed synergy. I just have never liked Marchand cards in HUT. Although I'm a Penguins fan at heart, I don't hate Marchand, unlike probably a lot of people, unless you're a Bruins fan, so this is nothing against him. But as far as his card's concerned, he's just a bit small, and I've always found it a bit difficult to use in HUT. As I mentioned earlier, if you are a Bruins fan and you like Marchand, go ahead and pick him up. He's probably going to get quite a few upgrades throughout the year. He already has 9 goals and 15 assists on the season in just 18 games played, so he's having a pretty solid start to the year. He's probably going to get some good upgrades, but overall, this card just doesn't play well in HUT for me and for a lot of other people. But again, if you're a Bruins fan, he's not going to hurt you. He's not necessarily going to help you as far as an advantage and other X factors to invest in. But Marchand's an okay choice. Up next is Carey Price. Unfortunately, the reason this card ranks just okay is because Carey Price's return to the NHL is questionable at best. EA could potentially give him a Master Set item, which would make this card one of the best goalies in the game. If you're a Canadiens fan and like Carey Price, I would rate him okay for now, but I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. EA just threw Matthew Barzal a bone. He got this 87 overall upgrade with only 4 goals and 4 assists in 17 games played, and with the Islanders having some struggles lately, well, this card just is not really doing it. Now, that being said, he does have great speed, 93 speed, 92 acceleration, so if he does get hot, which certainly could happen, I could foresee him getting some upgrades, but it may be a little while. I wouldn't fully avoid this card, so we're going to rank him okay, but I wouldn't put him in good or great category for now. Up next from the Boston Bruins is 6'1", 195-pound Patrice Bergeron. I do like Bergeron cards in NHL. However, this year, as far as X factors go, I think there's better centerman options for you. Typically, a lot of people have picked up Bergeron, myself included, early in the season to help them win some more faceoffs and have him at center. With Big Rig activated as well as Yoink, those are actually 2 pretty solid superstar and zone abilities. But I'm going to rank him in the okay category, especially if you're a Bruins fan, much like Marchand. I don't think this card's going to give you any huge advantage, but it's also not necessarily going to help your team because there's better options out there available for you. Bergeron does have 8 goals and 9 assists on the season with 18 games played. Being that he's only an 86, those upgrades aren't going to be felt as abundantly as if he was a higher overall. Sean Couturier is okay right now, guys. Keep in mind that could change very quickly. The next 2 cards actually are very similar in that regard. At 6'3", 211, I do love this card. Why? Well, his shot's phenomenal. If you played with him last year and had his fantasy card, it was unbelievable. He also has Fly the Zone and Workhorse for the time being. Distributor is going to be on the way there, would be my guess. So that would bring his speed up to an 88 right now, even at an 86 overall. I think this card has a lot of potential. He's not necessarily lighting it up on the season, but he's not doing terrible. 5 goals and 9 assists in 20 games played. I do like the fact that he does have unstoppable force, so this card would be incredibly difficult to take off of the puck. And Stick 'em Up is also a great zone ability to activate as well, so you either could do both or one or the other. I think it's slightly behind. I would move this card up to good or even potentially great if he does get some significant upgrades on the season. But for now, we're going to stick Sean Couturier in the okay category. ANZE KOPITAR is actually having a pretty solid start to the season, although he's cooled off a bit as of late. At 6'3", 225, much like Couturier, I feel like he has a lot of potential, and he also does have unstoppable force. So both of these options are currently sitting at okay. That doesn't mean that couldn't change, especially as these players get upgrades. Kopitar just this week did receive this 87 overall upgrade. I do like quick pick on him as well. His speed and shot, size, passing, really this card all around is fantastic. I did have his X Factor. I have used it in the past, but he just wasn't getting the upgrades in my opinion that he deserved. So a master set item could change that, of course. If that happens, I would upgrade this card to potentially great. I foresee him or Couturier getting some bumps hopefully soon. But again, it's just hard to tell right now, although EA has been fairly generous, giving pretty much all these players upgrades across the board. I might catch some flack for this one, but Adam Fox is just going to rank okay. He's doing pretty decent this year, on pace just about with where he was last year. 4 goals and 17 assists currently in 20 games played. But EA hasn't really been generous giving him any upgrades yet. And that leaves me a bit concerned, although, as I mentioned previously, they have given a lot of players upgrades to keep this pretty consistent, so that certainly could change. I wish he did have a speed synergy, but he already is pretty quick. An 85 overall with both 88 speed and 88 acceleration. Shot is okay. I just don't think he makes many lineups right now as an 85 overall. That shot's pretty abysmal. And I think there's better right-handed defensive options right now that you can get on your team. I mean, if you look at the 22 under 22 sets, some of the master items that are out, as well as the other X Factor options that you have, there's just a lot better options for you out there. That's why I currently rank, keyword currently, Adam Fox at just an okay for the time being. Next up is another defenseman on the list at Alex Pietrangelo, 6'3", 210, another right-handed defenseman, very similar to Adam Fox in my opinion as far as how they play in NHL 22. He does have shutdown, which I do like, but again, this card, I just don't foresee him getting a ton of upgrades. He has 4 tallies on the season with 8 assists and 21 games played. I just don't think Pietrangelo is one of those cards that's going to get a ton of upgrades unless he gets some master set. I'm going to rank him at okay. He's not a bad card to have on your team, but there are better right-handed defensemen options out there. As a Penguins fan, I would love for Kris Letang to get an upgrade one of these days, but at 6'2", 201, he hasn't seemed to get really hardly any. He does have Fly the Zone and potentially Distributor coming down the line, so that does make his speed pretty nice. Kind of like Kopitar and Couturier, Letang can get really hot really quick, and that would upgrade this card for me, but for the time being, I'm just going to have to rank it at okay. He does have Heat Seeker, which I would not activate, but I would activate in reverse, especially for only 4 ability points for zone ability. That is a pretty solid one. So Letang, again, is in the okay category for now. At only 1 goal and 11 assists in 18 games played, he hasn't lit it up, but obviously he didn't have much help or really anybody to pass the puck to there, although the Penguins did hold their own for a while. But with Malkin coming back here soon, as well as Crosby back in the lineup and GUENTZEL getting hot, I would rank Letang at okay for the time being, but he could potentially move up the ladder in the future. Up next is Jake Guentzel. Now, I'm only going to rank him at an okay for the time being. He does have Spark, Workhorse, and Fly the Zone, so you can certainly probably expect Distributor forthcoming on his card, which would put him at 90 speed. Keep in mind, he has 9 goals and 10 assists on the season in 21 games played. He is on a 9-game point streak, however, and with Crosby back, that certainly always does seem to help out Jake Guentzel. I would presume that he does get a Team of the Week card this week, which would bump him up to an 86, so this card could be pretty dangerous. And again, as we mentioned, these cards can get hot. If you asked me to rank this card about a week and a half ago, I would have said probably avoid GUENTZEL. He has moved up to okay, and I was almost borderline putting him at good. So if he gets a couple other upgrades, remains consistent, I would probably go ahead and throw him in your lineup. It actually won't hurt your team. He does also have Make It Snappy. So if he does get that upgrade and you can activate a speed synergy on him, getting him up to roughly 90 speed, 91 speed fairly soon, yeah, I think this could be a pretty dangerous card. His shot's pretty good across the board already. At an 85, these stats are pretty high. So if he does get a few more upgrades, gets around to high 80s or in the low 90s, this card's dangerous. Up next from the Chicago Blackhawks is 6'4" defenseman Seth Jones at 2 goals and 15 assists on the season. It's been a pretty rough start. If you watched any of the games for the Blackhawks this year, Seth Jones is, well, he's been noticeable out there, but not necessarily in a good way. Although he has turned it around lately, I don't foresee him getting a ton of upgrades in the future. I think this card is one of the best defensively. His size, as well as shutdown and quick pick, make him one of the best defensive options in the game. I do like his synergies that he has available, but as we've seen, these certainly can change as time goes on, so they don't mean as much as they did in the very beginning. I just don't foresee Seth Jones getting a ton of upgrades. I would probably lean more towards Dougie Hamilton, and again, we'll talk about more right-handed defensive options for you later in this video, but I don't think he necessarily hurts you because this card in just size and zone and superstar abilities is already good enough to make most lineups. Up next is a left-handed defenseman in Shea Theodore at 6'2", 195 pounds. He does have 3 tallies on the season and 8 assists in just 19 games. I don't necessarily love his zoner superstar abilities, although he is pretty quick. He does have distributor as well that you could throw on, so that would make his speed an 88 right now. I like this card, but I think there's better options out there for you. If you're gonna do the investment in the long term, I know he's probably gonna be a bit expensive, but I do like the Ryan O'Reilly Evo card. And again, in the 22 under 22 sets, there's some better options for you. And I also like even Quinn Hughes at 87 overall. That card is going to be significantly better and significantly quicker than this Shea Theodore. I don't think it hurts you though, so I'm gonna rank him at okay. Next up on the list is Mitch Marner at 6', 175 pounds. I do like the fact that he does have fly the zone, and you could probably, as I mentioned earlier, expect distributor to come on this card as well. That would bump up his speed to a 91. The thing I don't like about Marner cards is that they get taken off the puck very easily. As we also mentioned earlier, the saturated market in right-handed wingers is definitely prevalent in NHL 22. I think his shot is pretty good. If you do also activate Light the Lamp, it's already at 94 at only an 88 overall card. He does have the potential for more upgrades at 6 goals and 13 assists on the season in 23 games played. He's doing okay. He's on pace with about where he normally is, maybe a little bit underneath. But again, Marner's one of those players that can get hot very quick and can get a ton of upgrades. I would just rather invest all my coins, especially as he does get into those higher tiers. It does get more costly, right? At 50,000 coins or 2 power collectibles, as you can see for both tiers 8 and 9. So 100K right there just to barely move his card up. Even if he does get those tiers, I would probably rather invest in another player. But if you're a Leafs fan, if you're a Marner fan, he's going to be okay for your team. Coming up next from the Florida Panthers is 6'1", 202 pound Jonathan Huberdeau. Now with Barkov out for the next couple weeks, I think Huberdeau does have an opportunity, although Florida has lost a few games here. At 7 goals and 13 assists on the season in just 21 games played, he's actually doing pretty decent this year. I wish he did have a speed synergy, although he already is fairly quick. To me, he's just one of those cards that's kind of middle of the road. I do like Third Eye, especially for only 3 ability points. Tape to Tape's also pretty solid. If he does get some significant upgrades and Huberdeau gets hot, I would upgrade him to good. But his card plays like it's good at pretty much everything, and sometimes those aren't really the best cards to use in the game. Although he's very well rounded, it's just not a card that sticks out to me. But again, he's not going to hurt you, so we're going to rank him at okay as well. Moving on to the good category, we have Jack Eichel at 6'2", 213 pounds. You can see that I clearly have Eichel on my team. Let me tell you guys, this card is amazing. I don't even have Fly the Zone activated yet, but if I did, his speed is 93 and his acceleration is at 91. You can see his shot and hands are also already in the low 90s, except for his offensive awareness. This card is unreal. He is so hard to take off the puck, and with those stats already at an 88 overall card, Obviously, Eichel has not played a game yet this season, but he is set to return in February, obviously, to the Vegas Golden Knights. With wheels activated on this card, it's nutty. Like, this card is unreal. I would call it great, genuinely, if he was even playing a game. But currently, over the next couple months until he does step back on the ice, his upgrades are going to be unknown. Obviously, EA threw him a couple bones earlier on in the season when there was a lot of unknowns happening. However, we know that Eichel will be coming back in February. At least that's what the expected date is for his return. So hopefully he does get some upgrades when he steps back on the ice. But this card is so good. He's on my third line currently. And I can't say enough good things about this card. It's incredible. Up next from the Chicago Blackhawks is 5'10", 176 pound, needs no introduction, Patrick Kane. He does have his distributor, which is pretty nutty to me, but if you look at his hands, obviously it's pretty much 99s across the board. Shot is also incredible, as well as speed and acceleration is also above the majority of the cards in the game. At 6 goals and 12 assists on the season, he's doing pretty decently. The reason this card is not in the great category is simply because he does get taken off the puck quite easily. However, if you get into open space with him, and he can certainly do that with how good his hands are, his shot's pretty incredible, and I would rate this card as good. He's definitely worth picking up. I've been rocking with Dougie Hamilton for a while now, and let me tell you, his card is pretty decent. 6'6", 229 pounds. In my opinion, he's one of the best right-handed defensemen in the game and totally worth the investment. He does have fly the zone, workhorse, and spark, as I mentioned earlier, with others that have these speed synergies. Typically, that means distributor is yet to come. So if you do activate fly the zone on him, his acceleration and speed are both at 88 and 89s respectively, and only an 86 overall card. He does have some pretty high stats, and they come into play exactly where it counts. He does have Seeing Eye, which is a pretty good superstar ability. I had it activated for a little while, however, I just haven't found that it's worth activating. And on the season, Dougie's actually doing pretty decent in New Jersey. He had a bit of a slow start, but he's coming around now with 6 goals and 6 assists and only 16 games played. So I would certainly expect this card to continue to get some more upgrades, and he's a good addition to any team. After a slow start to the season, Mikko Rantanen has been roaring back. It's 6'4", 215 pounds. I love this card. Now, if you're just looking at the stats, you're like, Kyle, why is this card even something that I would pick or want on my team? Hear me out. He is so hard to take off the puck with his size and his puck control. It is unbelievable. Like, it is legitimately insane. He's almost easier to keep off the puck than any other player that I've used in HUT. He recently had a hat trick, and he's at 10 goals now and 8 assists on the season in only 15 games played. He's starting to light up. He just had a hat trick the other night, so I expect him to potentially get a team of the week this week, continue to get those upgrades, and if he gets to a 90, this card is already broken, I promise you. So I would say go ahead and pick it up. The only reason he isn't good is obviously his speed is a little bit slower than the rest, but if you're like me and you can play with some of these bigger winger cards, I do currently have him on my 4th line. However, I feel that he is 100% worth chasing in an X Factor. Unfortunately, Sid was hurt to start the season. This card is obviously insane. It's Sidney Crosby. You know he's gonna get a 99 overall at some point. The reason I have him at good is because Crosby's card just, I don't know, I have such a hard time playing with Crosby cards. I do have the 91 overall Rivals Crosby on my team right now, and I just haven't felt that he makes a significant impact enough currently with his stats to be great. I just have him good. 90 acceleration, 90 speed. Again, Crosby is so well-rounded as a player, which makes him who he is. However, he's so well-rounded as a player that those stats also reflect in Hockey Ultimate Team. And as we mentioned earlier, in Hockey Ultimate Team, it's not quite as forgiving whenever you have a completely well-rounded player. So again, where it does count, he's very good. His hands are incredible, but everything other than that is pretty high end, but it's not the top end tier. So I have him at good for now. Obviously, we'll see how he continues to play. It's been a little bit of a slow start coming back from that wrist surgery for him, but I would certainly presume that Crosby could easily be upgraded to a great. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a Penguins fan, and if you get Crosby in an X Factor choice pack, you're probably going to end up taking him, so keep that in mind. but this is currently where we have Crosby ranked for the time being. Next up from the New York Rangers is 5'11", 170-pound Artemi Panarin at 92 speed, 92 acceleration. His shot is unreal. This is one of the better right-hand wingers that I would certainly go ahead and consider picking up at 5 goals and 16 assists on the season in 20 games played. A little bit of a slower start for him. However, again, he's one of those players, although he has 5 goals in 20 games, he could just as easily have 5 goals in 2 games. So for future upgrade potential, I would 100% continue to keep an eye on Panarin. I think he's a good card to go after. I don't really love his current zone or superstar abilities. I don't think Make It Snappy is worth it at 10 ability points. I would like it more as a superstar ability, but of course, as this card continues to get upgrades, and Panarin certainly will with the caliber of player that he is, I would expect him to continue to get some different zone and superstar abilities and have these stats continue to stockpile. So he's a good pickup if you can get him on your team. Another terrific right-handed winger option, very similar build to Artemi Panarin, is David Pastrnak. At 6 foot, 194 pounds. He's at 7 tallies and 11 assists on the season and only 18 games played. Very similar to Panarin, as we mentioned, at 92 acceleration, 92 speed. They're almost exactly the same. I don't really love either his zone or superstar abilities for the time being, but same goes as he continues to get upgrades. There will be more that become available here for him. I do love his hands. I think the speed is good. His size is pretty decent, and obviously his shot is incredible. So again, if you're targeting a right-handed winger, I would target Pasta as well as Panarin. The 24-year-old Kirill Kaprizov at 5'10", 201 pounds. I love this guy. He's electric, and he's so much fun to watch play. In real life, it's 6 goals and 17 assists on the season in 21 games played. He's starting to heat it up a little bit more here as of late. Definitely becoming a bit more noticeable out there than he was in the beginning of the season. But I like this card. I really do. For a left-handed winger, I think he has some good longevity. I can certainly see his card getting a lot more upgrades than some of the other ones that are out there. I wish he did get a speed synergy. Obviously, that's not forthcoming, but at an 86 overall with 89 speed, 89 excel, it's not going to take many upgrades for him to reach that 90 mark. Again, he should receive that within his next upgrade after this one. So once he's an 88, he'll be 90 overall speed and 90 overall acceleration. So overall, guys, I love Kaprizov. He's an electric player. I think he's going to continue to light it on fire this year. And overall, he's a good card to have on your squad. Up next from the Calgary Flames is 6'2", 202-pound Matthew Tkachuk. He does have fly the zone as well as distributor, so that certainly does help him out. I actually think he is one of the better cards. I'm borderline going to upgrade him to good. If he continues this pace, he's already at 10 goals and 9 assists on the season in just 22 games played. He is borderline good. I mean, quite frankly, this card can go either way. In fact, we will call it good because he is having a pretty solid start to the season. I just hope that he can continue to keep that up. Total Eclipse is also an interesting one. Advanced skill at screening the goalie and obstructing their view. When screening with this player, the goalie's reaction time is reduced. So if your play style is to rip shots from the point, well, I think this is actually a pretty solid card to use that with. And he is a very well-rounded card. He is hard to take off the puck. And if you do also activate Big Rig, yeah, I like this card. I think he's a pretty good pickup. Although I did not say that in my last video, being that he's been playing well. And again, that's why I'm going to stats in this video. Due to the fact that as players play better, they tend to get more upgrades and their X factors become more dangerous. At first, I had Kyle Connor's card at okay in the beginning of this video, but as I look at his stats and also this card in a little bit more detail, I have used it earlier on in the season. I'm gonna upgrade it to good. Reason for that is he's already at 14 tallies on the season in just 22 games played. He also does have fly the zone. So if you do activate that, that would bump up his speed to a 90 overall. I do like the fact that he has Make It Snappy and Wills, two of my favorite superstar and zone abilities. Wrist shot is already solid. Hands are good. He's a pretty decent sized body. I worry a bit about his speed, but Wills could solve that for you. I don't know if it's worth the 10 ability points on his card. But if you're a Jets fan and you like Kyle Connor, I think this is a good card to have on your team. Leading the NHL in defensemen for points right now is 6'3", 215-pound John Carlson. He does have speed synergy, so if you did activate distributor, that would bring his speed up to an 89, and it's such a big body with a pretty powerful shot back there. I think John Carlson is one of the best players that you can get for a right-handed defenseman, right alongside Dougie Hamilton and somebody else that we will mention here a bit later. At 5 goals and 17 assists, as we mentioned, he's leading all defensemen in points currently in 22 games played. Yeah, I certainly believe that he has the ability to continue at that pace. Obviously, the Capitals are starting to do pretty good here, and I believe that he certainly has a lot of upgrades available in his future. As far as zone and superstar abilities go, nothing too exciting here for the time being. But as we mentioned, as he gets those upgrades, those will change. Up next from the Tampa Bay Lightning is 6'6", 223-pound Victor Hedman. Actually thought he would weigh a bit more than that at 6'6", but apparently not. Maybe his beard just makes him look bigger. A little bit slow, 85 acceleration, 86 speed. I'm kind of shocked, and maybe just would be a bit too overpowered with his size if they gave him a speed synergy. If he did have one, I would rank him at great. But he is a bit slow, although you don't necessarily notice it with how big he really is back there. I do like the fact that he does have shutdown as well as stick him up, two fantastic zone and superstar abilities for defensemen. His slap shot and wrist shot power is pretty decent, and obviously defensive awareness and stick checking is through the roof already at 99s across the board. At 3 goals and 15 assists on the season in 20 games played, he's about on pace with where he normally is, but of course, being that it's the Tampa Bay Lightning and being that it's Victor Hedman, I would certainly expect him to get a number of upgrades throughout the season. Up next is Alexander Barkov at 6'3", 215 pounds. I love playing with Barkov in NHL 22. Much like Eichel and much like Rantanen especially, he feels the same. He's super hard to take off the puck. I do like the fact that he does have his speed synergy, so that would bring his speed up to an 87. Here it says workhorse, but assuming that we activated fly the zone, that would be an 87 speed. I know it's a bit concerning with his injury when he went down there, but they're saying he'll be back here in 2 weeks, which is fantastic because prior to his injury, he was at 9 goals and 8 assists in just 15 games played. So hopefully he can continue at that pace upon his return. I think Puck on a String is fantastic. I also think All Alone is an interesting one, but I definitely wouldn't activate it, although it looks cool. I like the palm tree in the background. However, his shooting and the ability to hold on to the puck, as you see there with 95 puck control, through the roof for Alexander Barkov. I would 100% pick this up, especially if you can get his card for a bit cheaper now that he's currently injured and not playing. Some people I've seen him go for as low as $100K. And if you could pick him up for even less than $125K, I would certainly do so. Up next is another player down in Florida from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Nikita Kucherov. Unfortunately, he still is set to be out until about mid-January is his expected due date when he comes back. But even without any further upgrades between now and then, this card is viable on just about every team. At 94 acceleration as well as 91 speed, and of course with distributor that would change to 93 speed and 92 acceleration, he'll be able to keep up with most players throughout the game, so he can at least slot into your third or fourth line even come January. Shooting obviously is amazing, hands are fantastic, and you can expect that as long as the Tampa Bay Lightning continue at the pace that they've done or even somewhere close to that, and same with Kucherov, that he will continue to get many upgrades upon his arrival. Up next from the Carolina Hurricanes, Sebastian Aho, 10 goals and 10 assists in 20 games. He also has distributor, which will bring him up to a 90 speed. Guys, do not sleep on this card. People are sleeping on this card. I don't know why. He is almost a guaranteed locked in 99 overall, and here's why. He has his Evo card out, and as the Evo card gets upgrades, so will his X Factor. Now, the difference is obviously you have to pay for it as far as an X Factor goes, but that Evo card is already at an 80 overall. So for example, if he continues at the pace that he does right now, to get him up to a 90, it would take him about another 20 or so games, and that would be roughly around mid-January where he's a 90 overall, assuming, of course, he doesn't get another team of the week, but he's already at an 87 for the time being. So in my opinion, this card is a 100% lock. If you can get him for under 120K, I would 100% pick him up. I think he's fantastic. As well as Third Eye, I really like that zone ability. So overall, guys, people sleep on Sebastian Aho. I don't think they should. He was a team of the season card last year too. I would upgrade him to great if he was a bit bigger in stature. However, overall, I think this is a good card to add to just about any team, in my opinion. Up next for the Tampa Bay Lightning is 6'3", 225-pound goaltender, Andrei Vasilevskiy. At 10 wins and 4 losses on the season, obviously with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and as we mentioned with Hedman and Kucherov, he's going to continue to get many upgrades as time goes on. I think where it counts here at 88 speed as well as 90 positioning and low aggression, yeah, this card is pretty solid. I wish he was a bit taller, but he's almost a locked in 99 overall throughout the year. If I'm you, I would wait till a choice pack comes around to pick him up. I don't think he's worth buying in the auction house. However, if you get him for cheap, certainly do so. Moving on to the great cards. First up, we have 6'3", 220-pound Austin Matthews. Of course, needs no introduction. I currently have, as you can see here, Make It Snappy activated on him. I think it's fantastic. He's extremely hard to take off the puck. His shooting and hands are obviously incredible. And I do like the fact that he has distributor, so that does increase his speed, and he certainly does need it. Hopefully he continues to get some more upgrades throughout the season after a bit of a slow start for Matthews as well as Toronto as a whole. He's currently sitting at 10 goals and 9 assists in just 20 games played. I would certainly expect Matthews to get a number of upgrades, in my opinion, almost as a lock in at 99 overall. So 100% pick him up if you have not already. Although he's been hurt, Nathan MacKinnon is of course one of the most electrifying players in the game. At 6 foot, 200 pounds, he's extremely difficult to take off the puck. His acceleration and speed is extremely noticeable in this game. And I love the fact that he does have wheels for only 5 ability points. You don't necessarily need ankle breaker. I wouldn't activate that. But overall, I know he's been a little bit banged up here, but with how competitive Nathan MacKinnon is, I'm sure he'll come back with a vengeance, and he's almost guaranteed a 99 overall at some point this year. Next up is 6'1", 194-pound Steven Stamkos. I've been using him all year. This card is unreal, guys. Please pick him up. Not only is he lighting on fire right now with 11 goals and 13 assists in just 20 games played, but this card is so good. He is so hard to take off the puck. His hands are amazing. His shot is fantastic. You can put him on center. Overall, he is 100% one of the cards to chase. I had him ranked a little bit lower in my previous X Factor ranking video, but being that he's on fire, and then I have about 100 plus games underneath my belt with Stamkos, I would 100% recommend him to anybody. He is a great card to have on your squad. Up next from the Colorado Avalanche is 5'11", 187-pound Cale Makar at 9 goals and 11 assists in just 16 games. He's been hurt for a bit here, but think about that. For a defenseman, 9 goals and 11 assists in 16 games, he's literally on fire. I would presume that he will get a team of the week this week as well. But at 92 acceleration, 92 speed, everything across the board, this card is fantastic, and an 87 overall, and he's almost guaranteed a 99 overall. And if that is the case here, well, sooner rather than later, pretty much everything on this card is going to be a 99, and it's a lock. In my opinion, he's the best right-handed defenseman in the game. Please pick him up on your team if you have not already. Up next from the Edmonton Oilers is some guy that none of us have ever heard of. Connor McDavid, I believe is how you pronounce it. At 6'1", 193. Obviously, McDavid needs no introduction. I like Big Rig on McDavid. I've seen people utilize that. Obviously, I don't have his X Factor yet, but the chase is on. 96 acceleration, 96 speed, 97 wrist shot accuracy, amazing hands. You guys know already. I don't have to tell you. Pick this card up. He's the best X Factor you can go ahead and acquire, and he is pretty much a guaranteed locked in 99 overall. And of course, we need to mention his partner, Leon Draisaitl, at 6'2", 208 pounds. I like the fact, and he certainly does need those speed synergies, but even without those, his shot is through the roof. He's extremely hard to take the puck off of, and he does have Big Rig and Unstoppable Force. I probably wouldn't activate both of those. I'd probably do one or the other. But again, this is another one of those cards to chase. With X Factors being so low right now, if you can get him under 300K, I would 100% without a blink of an eye go ahead and pick that up. So again, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, those are the cards that you should certainly be chasing. And speaking of chasing, we have Alexander Ovechkin, who is currently chasing the all-time goal record. I don't need, obviously, to introduce him at 6'3", 238 pounds. He also has distributor activated, so that would bump up his speed to a 90. I like the fact that he also has Unstoppable Force as an option here. However, I heard that Schneip is one of the best superstar abilities that you could put on a right-handed shot like Ovechkin. Obviously, his shot is already through the roof, which carries over to how he plays in real life. But if you do not have this Ovechkin card on your team, continue to do those X Factor choice packs and the seasonal rewards. I would certainly try to pick up Ovi if you can. And last but not least is the card that I'm currently chasing, 6'1", 201 pound Roman Josi. I'll probably regret putting this out here just because now everyone's gonna chase it and his price is gonna skyrocket. So, you know what? It is what it is. You guys have made it this far in the video. You deserve to know this information. Josi has 7 goals and 13 assists on the season in 21 games played. If I'm you, I would go after Cale Makar and Roman Josi. Those are the 2 best defensive X factors that you can acquire. Josi is extremely hot right now. And in my opinion, especially with the speed synergy that you can activate, I would go ahead and pick up Josi if you can. Even though he's only an 87 overall right now, he is usable in just about every lineup in HUT. And I can only continue to imagine that he will receive more upgrades as time goes on. Certainly, of course, those superstar and zone abilities will continue to change. I think Send It is an interesting one, but I don't know if it's worth activating for 4 ability points. However, long story short, go ahead and pick up Roman Josi. He's a great X factor to have on your team. That's it for me today, guys. If you did like the video, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you love NHL 22 content, you want to make sure that you are up to date with the best players for your team, I would personally love to have you stick around here with me. Make sure you go ahead and click subscribe. Again, I'm in Advantage, and I will see you guys next time.